Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Discord, we got Josh.
Hey.
Gonna look at kicking off with some NXT this week. We haven't talked about them for a little while. We talk about a lot of Raw and a lot of SmackDown, but a lot of things happening over on NXT. And we had Stephanie Vaquer coming out with the double championship for a little while there, defended them both. And now it looks like the path forward is set. Ava making Stephanie relinquish the Women's North American Championship, which will now be defended in a 6-woman ladder match at Stand and Deliver. First two people in that are Zarya and Kalani Jordan. And then we've got a match at Stand and Deliver for the NXT Women's Championship, where Stephanie gets to choose her opponent. That was kind of the consolation prize of you get to vacate the North American title, but you get to choose your opponent for the NXT Women's Championship. So a bit of a trade-off.
Yeah, she'll probably end up picking both women.
Yeah.
Personally, I would much rather just see a one-on-one match between her and Jordy and Grace, but I think it'll end up being a triple threat.
Yeah, I think the triple threat is as you say, the most obvious. I feel like for a Stand and Deliver, you do want kind of a high-profile match for that women's championship, and honestly, Stephanie versus Grace in a one-on-one is a higher-profile match to me than Stephanie versus Grace versus Parker. And there's no shade thrown on Parker there. It's just that they were two big signings, much like we had Stephanie versus Julia being quite a hyped singles match. You sort of want to see all of these combinations of the new woman going head to head in one-on-ones, not we'll throw Jada in here to take the pin so we can do a rematch in a month at the next show. But for me, the more interesting one with way more directions they're going in, and I don't really know where they're headed, is the Women's North American Championship. We thought, ladder match, WrestleMania weekend, we thought there'd be a couple maybe, or at least one, on the WrestleMania main event, but we're going to get one on Stand and Deliver instead. It does feel like potentially set up for a Zarya win. I did feel, when Zarya, Julia, and Stephanie all came through and up at the same time, that Zarya was being a little bit left behind. Julia picks up the women's title, Stephanie picks up the North American title. Maybe this is a chance for Zarya to jump onto that championship gold train, I guess.
Yeah. When she debuted at the same time as Stephanie and Julia, we were like, this is the next level after these two. Little more polishing is needed, but she'll get there. This is her first stepping stone. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Zarya ends up winning this title. But it is still going to be interesting seeing who's exactly in the match.
Yeah, there's 4 obviously empty spots, but I don't know, from seeing Zarya when she was wrestling as Delta in Australia, it feels like she works a whole lot better as a heel. We brought her in, we've done this pairing with Sol Ruka in a face tag team. Haven't hated it. I've liked the segments they've done, the vignettes, the stuff they've filmed. It's been good. But maybe we get Sol Ruka in this match, and maybe it comes down to those two climbing the ladder, and Zarya may flip sides and take out Sol and do what needs to be done, pick up the championship, and then you can have Sol chasing, potentially a way to start off a feud straight away from this ladder match. And then flipping over to the men, we know Obafemi running around with the championship. We knew Trick Williams wanted a shot at it. We know Javon Evans wants a shot at it. And we end up getting ourselves a triple threat for the NXT championship. And for me, the important part leading to this is Javon Evans pointing out that Trick Williams is doing exactly what Carmelo Hayes did last year, and in sort of you're following in the footsteps of Carmelo.
That is a very, very kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, he is uh he's fallen to the same kind of like path that Carmella did prior to leaving NXT. Um, and it looks like his Trick Williams is Javon Evans, and it wasn't long after that feud that Evans won the championship, or that Williams won the championship. So, um, is this a way to maybe get the title onto Javon Evans without really hurting Obafemi? Because I think both of these guys, both Oba and Trick, are their days in NXT are numbered. It's just a matter of how many number is the days of those numbers. I think this is probably Trick Williams, at the very least, Trick
Yeah.
Williams' last show in NXT before showing up on Monday or Friday after WrestleMania as an as a new person for those shows. Obafemi still could have a
Yeah,
little
for
run,
sure.
um, but I just don't know how you go about him for too long without completely losing him if you want to bring him to the main roster.
Yeah, I think Trick Williams is sort of following that Carmelo Hayes sort of blueprint, right? Have a match, not win the championship, head up to the main roster. Um, Whether he gets a one-on-one with Javon after Stand and Deliver at Battleground, I think's the one after, before he heads on up, I don't know, or he heads up and still does a match on NXT. You can bridge for a little bit, but Trick Williams does feel earmarked for that main roster. And Obafemi, I would draw parallels, I guess, to somebody in the women's roster with Roxanne Perez, where we've thought that she's been earmarked for the main roster, had like a feud up there, had the Rumble performance, had a bunch of stuff, and is now just kind of floating in NXT waiting for her time. And it feels like if they take the title off Oba, give it to Javon, that he may end up in that sort of just space floating around without anything really happening. Still important, so Roxanne can still, insert herself into championship feuds or other feuds and still be important and still be impressive, much like Oba could. There's not a lot of substance. We're just waiting for the day that she gets called up.
Basically, the Braun Breaker after he lost the NXT Championship is where we would be seeing Obafemi after he loses the NXT Championship if he stays in NXT.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens at Stand and Deliver. I don't think Trick is winning the championship. For me, it's either does Femi walk out with it, or does Javon manage to sneak it away, in which case I hope Femi gets heading up to the main roster sooner rather than later so we don't see him sort of wallowing around. And then staying in that men's division North American Championship, we wasn't that long ago. We were sitting on this show and we were talking about how Sean Spears defeated Tony D'Angelo, picked up that championship, and here we are talking about another title change already as Ricky Saints, newcomer to NXT, takes out Sean, and now he's champ.
It definitely, I think it definitely felt like that it was going to be short-lived. Sean Spears is at a stage in his career where he's not a long-term option. He's definitely somebody to elevate other people, but also and get good work with. Saints is definitely the part of the future package. And it probably is going to be. It's probably likely to be Ethan Page versus Ricky Saints at Stand and Deliver for the title. Which is going to be really wild when you come to think about it, because they're both ex-AEW guys. That's wrestling on the biggest weekend in all of wrestling. But But yeah, it should be fun. It'll be interesting seeing where they go with Ricky from here. And see exactly where how the pieces all fall together. It is sad that they brought this new group together for Sean Spears, and immediately one person just completely demolished them.
Yeah, I don't know quite what they were, I guess, doing with Sean in terms of that, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the future versus sort of the guy that's just gonna be there and elevate people and almost be that gatekeeper. Saints is amazing. You know, people were chatting about him. They wanted him in NXT. They wanted him in WWE. And then Sean Spears, great guy, great talent, but I don't know. I don't feel like the hype was as big for Sean Spears when he was coming over from AEW. Funnily enough,
But he was a WWE guy at first, so
that's true. Well, let's go into our entrance theme before we jump over to the main roster news. Our entrance theme this week is Triple H.
The king of kings. His will be done.
And you're back at Wrestling Up on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. Where are we? Raw, SmackDown. You know what? Let's talk about this contract signing. CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. It is the triple threat that we're looking forward to. It is the triple threat that will be main eventing night one of WrestleMania 41. And there's still this big Heyman question mark sitting above everything on what sort of role is he going to play, because turns out he still owes a favor to CM Punk.
yeah, it makes sense when you go think about it. Yes, this is like Punk's greatest dream, to be a WrestleMania main eventer. But it makes sense that Punk would not use this as his favor. Obviously, there's something that goes beyond this, and I love that Rollins is ticked off that Punk finally gets what he wants. And Roman Reigns is just Roman Reigns. He's an egotistical a-hole. And it just like, it's basically just, this is all because of me. I don't care what, and it's gonna have a great paycheck, and that's all that matters. And it was perfect. You know, usually with contract signings, there's a big brawl and stuff. This didn't need it because they did the brawl last week. So it may have been a tame contract signing, but the personality was there, and that's all it was needed. And of course, the whole, yes, this is what I want, but no, I'm not using my favor for this.
Yeah, for me, the fact that the favor has been mentioned so much feels like it is gonna have to pay off in that match. And you know, if that leads to a CM Punk victory, because Paul Heyman turns on Roman, or where it goes, you know, Roman's definitely looking jealous the more that Paul Heyman is hanging out with CM Punk. If anything, you kind of don't want to draw the ire of your other competitors in this triple threat, because, as we said last week, everybody hates everybody. Maybe the best strategy is to lay low and hope the other two hate each other more than they hate you. But yeah, CM Punk's definitely drawing some eyes, both from Rollins and from Reigns at the moment. And then this US Championship scene. We had the number one contendership. Braun Strowman won it. Fine. LA Knight, Braun Strowman, and Fatu gets interfered.
And
are we ever gonna let up on this Fatu Strowman stuff?
Well, Strowman would have to be done with him, wouldn't he? Strowman's never done with anybody. Although I do think it was I think it's very interesting that there was a segment that had a very tense altercation with Solo that seems to be more like what we were talking about, where we think this is the next phase of the Bloodline storyline. That Jacob Fatu is going to do what Jay said he would do, and the reason why they would not bring him in. And that's going to be just run wild over Solo. And basically become the Bloodline 2.0's second in command. Basically, because he can't be the tribal chief, there's only one.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. We've said that Solo and Fatu are gonna go head to head sooner or later. The tension is definitely building. I think Fatu still wants to deal with Strowman. I know he mentioned the United States Championship as well. I don't know what kind of there's still so many different ways it could shake out. We do only have a couple more weeks before WrestleMania though, so I don't foresee a big Jacob Solo split prior to WrestleMania. We do have just enough time, I would say, to execute something like that, but I would like a little bit more breathing room if they were going to, which means that I guess we're going to head to WrestleMania with maybe something that's just an LA Knight, Fatu, Strowman kind of match, and maybe Solo screws over Fatu accidentally or on purpose, and the split is later on down the line with the singles match, maybe SummerSlam or wherever it happens.
Yeah, we could have that, or we could just have a straight up stipulation abound match between Strowman and Fatu, and LA Knight defends his title against the newest member of SmackDown that's debuting next week on Raw on SmackDown, Rey Fenix.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is the one wrinkle really, is that right now LA Knight, Strowman, Fatu, they are all circling around this United States Championship. Can't forget Nakamura as well, but my heart is so set on double mid card champions for the Lucha Brothers, and so I'm also not gonna give up that Rey Fenix either enters a 1v1 with LA Knight or joins the multi-person match and comes out on top, because that's what I want to see, and I'm going to be disappointed if that's not what I see.
Yeah. But yeah, he's debuting on SmackDown. That should be fun to watch. It is interesting that they are being kept apart for right now on different shows. But it's just, I think that will make the eventual tagging that much better, because you have a chance to get to know the guy by themselves, and then in a few months you can then get to know them together.
Yeah, I think if you bring them in as a tag team and then you split them apart, you sort of have to prove them twice. You have to prove them as a tag team, and then you have to prove them both individually, so I guess 3 times. Whereas if you bring them in as single stars and then they prove themselves as single stars, when they team up, you don't need to prove them again. It's 2 upper mid card guys who are dominant and good showing on their own coming together to form a team. And I think that's a little bit easier when you're bringing them into a new audience, such as the WWE audience, who may or may not be as familiar with the Lucha Brothers. And the reception for Penta already has shown that you can build him up really fast, and I imagine very similar trajectory for Phoenix. Well, talking about Penta jumping over to Raw, he was in a match. He was teaming with Bron Breakker against Dominic and Bella, and through some sheer miracle, Finn Balor got a pinfall victory on Penta, of all people. It was because Bron Breakker accidentally spared him, but Matt, Finn Balor picking up a pinfall victory, I'ma take it. Does not happen.
Yeah. It's interesting. Obviously, it was to set up more issues between Penta and Braun Breaker, with a segment later in the show where Penta called Braun Breaker stupid. So yeah, I think that had more to do with that. That fork of this could be a multi-man match for the title, fork. But yeah, Finn getting a win's great. Dominic being Dominic's great. But yeah, it was all about Braun Breaker and Penta. That's what that all was about.
Yeah, I think for me, multi-man match, that's pretty common, especially for this championship. Breaker, Penta, Dominic, and Bella all seem to, I guess, whether we go 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, those four seem to have locked themselves in. Now, we can be talking about Chad Gable's, Sheamus's, Kaiser's, Pete Dunne, Tyler Bates's all day. Those four seem to be the core of that match. Whether people get added on top, whether people don't, those seem to be the four that I would expect to be at least in the match. And as I said when we were talking about the US title, I want to see Penta walk out with it. I want to see it, and I will be disappointed.
I think it's probably like 90-10 that you'll get your wish with that one. Whereas with the Rey Fenix, because he's just coming in, it's probably 50-50. But I think if the match happens at WrestleMania and Penta's involved in the Intercontinental title match, he's walking out with it.
Yeah, I think the same with Fenix. I think if he is in the United States title match at WrestleMania, he probably walks out with it. For me, the odds for Fenix is, does he make it to WrestleMania in the United States Championship match? Because, as you said, he has just shown up with 2 weeks to go. So I think that one's more tough of getting on the card and getting in that position. But if he's there, I think he's got it. We've only got a few minutes left. You know what? Let's just talk about this Belair, Sky, Ripley triple threat that's definitely a triple threat. You said it was going to get thrown out. It was a double DQ, pretty much on the money, as you expected.
Yep. It was what needed to be there to make sense to get to where we're going. Belair, being the kind of good person that she is, would not actively screw somebody over, which is one way to get to the triple threat. So you had to immediately throw that out. So the only option to get to the triple threat is there to be no winner to this match. How do you do that? Double count out. Or having to have Bianca throw the match out because both people have hit her. And that's what happened. Both people hit her, so being a referee, she's required by bylaws to throw the match out.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, I think. As I said, I was quite happy that we're not, just following a standard, bog standard path towards the triple threat. I expect that we'll probably get it officially announced next week on Raw. I think there is 2 more Raws from the top of my head, maybe 3, before WrestleMania, so I think they'll make it official soon. But the story is pretty much set. Versus if I look at a couple of the other stories, like Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, we're still adding layers onto that. We're still adding layers onto Gunther, Jey Uso. I think this one is there. It's built. It's had all of the storyline check marks. All the boxes are ticked. Time to go for them. All right, well, we have run out of time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling RND Up. And we will catch you next week.